I've been driving long-haul routes for over 15 years, and I've seen some strange things on the road, but nothing prepared me for what happened last week. I was hauling freight from Denver to Chicago, cutting through the Midwest on I-80, a route I know like the back of my hand. It was a little past midnight, the kind of dark where the highway stretches out in front of you like an endless ribbon, and the only light comes from your headlights and the occasional flicker of a passing sign. That's when I first saw her, a woman, standing on the shoulder of the road, just at the edge of my high beams. She was wearing a long, pale dress, something that looked out of place on a night this cold. She didn't wave or signal for help, just stood there, her head tilted slightly to the side, as if she was watching me. I slowed down for a second, confused, but before I could process what I was seeing, she was gone. I figured I must have imagined her. Maybe a trick of the light, maybe I was just tired. These things happen when you've been on the road for hours. But that wasn't the last time. 20 miles later, I saw her again. Same woman, same white dress, standing by the side of the road. This time, I got a better look at her face. Pale, almost too pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She wasn't looking at the road. She was looking at me, directly at me. I blinked, shook my head, and when I looked again, she was gone. I started to feel uneasy, my stomach twisting with a sense of dread. This was no coincidence. She couldn't have been in two places at once, not like that. I kept driving, trying to shake the image from my mind. I told myself it was fatigue playing tricks on me. Maybe I'd been pushing it too hard, needed to pull over and rest. But that didn't explain why I saw her again, standing by the road just 5 minutes later. This time, closer to the edge of the lane, as if she was waiting for me. I glanced at my rearview mirror, half expecting to see her behind me, but there was nothing. The road stretched out behind my truck, empty and desolate. That's when I made the decision to stop at the next rest area, hoping some fresh air and a strong cup of coffee would clear my head. I pulled into a rest stop about 50 miles out from Davenport, one of those old, worn-down places with a flickering neon sign and vending machines that haven't been restocked in years. The parking lot was nearly empty except for a couple of trucks and a beat-up sedan parked near the restrooms. I stepped out of the cab, stretching my legs, breathing in the cold night air. The place was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. I walked toward the vending machines, thinking maybe I'd grab a soda before hitting the restroom. That's when I saw her. She was standing in the shadows near the edge of the lot, just barely visible under the dim light of a street lamp. My heart skipped a beat. It was the same woman, pale dress, same dead-eyed stare. She wasn't standing by the road anymore. She was here, at the rest stop, watching me. I froze, my skin crawling. How the hell had she gotten here? There was no way. I hadn't passed any cars, hadn't seen anyone walking on the road. I took a step back, my breath catching in my throat, and she took a step forward. Slowly, deliberately. I turned and walked as fast as I could back to my truck, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see her again, didn't want to know if she was following me. I locked the doors and floored it out of there, my heart pounding in my chest. I drove for hours, not daring to stop, my eyes glued to the road. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there, watching me, waiting. And now, every time I check my rearview mirror, I half expect to see her standing there, by the side of the road, waiting for me to stop again.
Let's hop on to story number 2. But before I begin reading, make sure that you have subscribed to Mr. Scare for regular horror podcasts.
I've been hauling freight across the country for over a decade, so I've seen just about everything the open road can throw at you. Drunk drivers, blown tires, breakdowns in the middle of nowhere. But nothing like what happened a few nights ago on that stretch of desert between Barstow and Vegas. I was hauling a load of machinery, driving through the Mojave Desert. It was one of those long, empty stretches where there's nothing but sand and scrub as far as the eye can see. The sun had started to set, and I knew I'd need to find a spot to pull over soon, but I figured I could push through the night, maybe get to a rest area near Vegas by midnight. That's when the engine coughed, sputtered, and died. I coasted to the side of the road, cursing under my breath. There wasn't another vehicle in sight. I tried starting the engine again, but it didn't even turn over, just a dead click. I grabbed my CB radio, hoping to reach dispatch for help. All I got was static. I adjusted the dials, trying different frequencies, but nothing worked. The desert was silent except for the soft hiss of static. I was stranded. As the last light faded from the horizon, the temperature dropped fast, the heat of the day replaced by a biting cold. The only light came from my truck's headlights cutting through the darkness. The stillness of the desert at night felt heavy, oppressive. That's when I heard it, the faint sound of footsteps crunching on gravel outside the truck. At first, I thought maybe another vehicle had pulled up, but when I looked in the mirrors, there was nothing. No headlights, no taillights, just darkness. The footsteps circled my truck, slow and deliberate, almost like someone was walking just out of sight, testing me. I rolled down the window and stuck my head out, but there was no one there, just the vast, empty desert. A chill ran down my spine. It wasn't the cold that got to me, it was the silence. Whoever, or whatever, was out there was too quiet. I sat back in the cab, locking the doors out of instinct, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried the radio again, turning the dials furiously, but the static persisted. And then I heard a voice. At first, it was faint, barely more than a whisper under the static, but it grew louder, clearer. My own voice, crackling through the speakers. "Stay inside." I froze. My blood ran cold. I knew it was my voice, but I hadn't said a word. The radio crackled again, and the voice, my voice, repeated it. "Stay inside. Don't open the door." My throat went dry, and I reached for the radio mic, my hand trembling. "Who is this?" I demanded, my voice shaky. But there was no response, just static, rising and falling like the breath of some unseen entity. The footsteps started again, this time louder, circling the truck faster, like whoever was out there was running. I could feel the vibrations through the floor of the cab. I locked eyes with the side mirror, scanning the area around me, but there was nothing, just the darkness pressing in on all sides. "Stay inside." The voice came again, louder this time, more urgent. My own voice warning me, pleading with me. My breath came in short, panicked gasps as I stared out into the night, straining to see anything beyond the reach of the headlights. The footsteps stopped suddenly. The silence was deafening. I didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. I sat there, clutching the steering wheel, listening to the static hum through the radio, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Minutes passed like hours. Then, just as quickly as it had started, the radio went dead. No static, no voice, just silence. I don't know how long I sat there, too afraid to move, too afraid to open the door. Eventually, the sun started to rise, casting long shadows across the desert. And just like that, whatever had been circling the truck was gone. I managed to get a tow later that morning, but I'll never forget that night. I haven't been able to shake the feeling that something, or someone, was out there in the desert, watching me. And every time I turn on my radio, I can't help but listen for my own voice warning me again. I've been a trucker for nearly 15 years, but I've never felt as uneasy as I did that night driving through the backroads of Kentucky. It was late October, and I was making my way from Lexington to Nashville. The usual route was crawling with traffic, so I decided to take a back road to save some time. At first, it seemed like a good idea. The air was crisp, and the moon hung high, illuminating the winding roads through the dense woods. But as I drove deeper into the countryside, I noticed something strange. There were no road signs, no markers, nothing indicating where I was or how far I had to go. My GPS kept recalculating, the screen blinking with confusion. I chuckled nervously at first, thinking it was just the old technology failing me. But as I drove on, the road began to feel surreal. The trees leaned in closer, their branches twisting like bony fingers reaching out toward my truck. The further I went, the more I felt like I was driving into a dark abyss. Then I saw the first sign, illuminated by my headlights. "Welcome to Tanglewood." I frowned, never having heard of any town by that name. I glanced at my GPS, still spinning in circles. I kept driving, the truck's engine humming steadily. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I glanced in the rearview mirror, the darkness behind me felt thick and oppressive. I pushed down the growing anxiety in my chest and pressed on, hoping to find a turnoff or a gas station soon. As I rounded a sharp bend, I saw another sign flash by, "Danger ahead." My heart raced, and I almost slammed the brakes. That wasn't a normal road sign. I took a deep breath, trying to convince myself it was just a prank or a faded remnant of a past life. But the air inside the cab grew thick with tension. Suddenly, I saw something move in the trees to my left. A shape, barely discernible in the shadows, darted away as soon as I caught a glimpse of it. I thought it was just a deer at first, but then I noticed it wasn't just an animal. It was too low to the ground, moving too fast. My instincts kicked in, and I decided it was time to turn around. I flipped the truck into reverse, but when I looked back, the road behind me seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. It was as if I hadn't made any progress at all. I turned around and drove forward again, hoping for a sign of familiarity, but the same shape appeared in my periphery, darting just beyond the reach of my headlights. That's when the feeling of dread turned into pure terror. I could see the trees parting in a way that suggested something large was moving through the woods. I slammed my foot on the gas, desperate to escape whatever was out there. But the road twisted and turned, and with each curve, I felt like I was looping back onto myself. I couldn't escape. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making. Panic gripped me as I thought about stopping and checking my surroundings, but the idea of stepping out of my truck paralyzed me. "Stay calm," I muttered under my breath, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Just keep driving." But the deeper I went into this bizarre stretch of road, the more the air seemed to vibrate with menace. The shadows around me seemed to close in, and the rustling in the trees grew louder, more deliberate. I felt something watching me, moving with me, just out of sight. I hit a pothole that jolted me against the seat, and the truck's headlights flickered for a moment. "Come on," I shouted, trying to rally some semblance of courage. I couldn't let fear consume me. Then, just as I thought I'd lost it completely, I caught sight of a sliver of light up ahead. I could hardly believe my eyes. The road opened into what looked like a deserted gas station. Relief flooded me, and I raced toward it, ready to jump out and call for help. But when I pulled in, I found it was nothing more than an abandoned structure. The gas pumps were long gone, and the windows were boarded up. A sense of dread settled back over me like a heavy blanket. I turned back to my truck, but the road I had come from was now completely shrouded in darkness. There was no turning back. Something was out there, and it wasn't going to let me go that easily. I sat in the cab, heart pounding, listening to the silence close in around me. Whatever was in the woods wasn't just hunting me. It was playing with me, and I was trapped in a game I didn't understand. I had entered a nightmare, and there seemed to be no waking up from it. It was around 2 a.m. in the middle of June when I found myself cruising along Interstate 70, the pavement stretching endlessly in front of me. I had just finished a long haul from Denver to St. Louis and was eager to get back home to Ohio. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale light over the deserted highway. I was tired and fighting to keep my eyes open, so when I spotted a convoy of trucks ahead, I felt a rush of relief. Traveling in a group always felt safer, especially on those lonely stretches of road. As I joined the convoy, I counted about 5 trucks in total, all of them semi-trailers like mine. I switched on my CB radio, hoping to chat with the drivers, but got only static in response. Weird, but I shrugged it off. Maybe they were just focusing on the road. I settled into my seat, and for a while, the rhythmic hum of the engines soothed me. But as the miles stretched on, a sense of unease began to creep in. The trucks in the convoy never seemed to pull off for gas or food, and I started to feel an uncomfortable weight in my stomach. I glanced over to the driver of the truck to my right, but all I could see was a silhouette behind the tinted windows. I couldn't make out any faces, and that made my skin crawl. Maybe they're all just like me, tired and focused. I muttered to myself, trying to dismiss the rising tension. Yet, the more I drove, the more I felt like I was in a strange trance, entranced by the red lights of the trucks ahead. Time slipped away. I had no idea how long we'd been driving. I checked my phone, but of course, there was no signal out here. I tapped the steering wheel anxiously, the steady beat of the tires against the pavement only amplifying my discomfort. The trucks around me maintained a perfectly synchronized speed, a constant phalanx on the highway. After another hour, I decided I needed to break free. I'm just gonna pull off for a second, I thought, trying to reassure myself that I wouldn't lose my bearings. I checked my mirrors and signaled to switch lanes. That's when the truck to my left shifted just a little, blocking my exit. I hesitated, my heart racing, but I was determined. I swung the wheel and tried to merge back into the right lane, only to find the truck on that side doing the same. What the hell? I cursed, my pulse quickening. The convoy was closing in, forcing me to stay in line with them. Hey, what's going on? I called into the CB, expecting at least one of them to respond. But again, only static met my ears. Panic started to set in. I glanced at the headlights of the truck ahead of me, trying to catch a glimpse of the driver. It was like trying to peer into a void. I felt as if I was losing my grip on reality, my mind swirling with questions. Why were these drivers so determined to keep me in the convoy? What did they want from me? My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as I tried to maintain composure. I knew I had to act fast. I was still too close to the last exit I had seen, and the darkness beyond the highway felt menacing. I checked my mirrors again, ready to slam the gas pedal and break free. I looked at the truck in front of me, just a bit closer this time, and felt a surge of adrenaline. I stomped on the gas, veering slightly to the right in a desperate bid to break away. Just then, the trucks around me tightened their formation, almost like a pack of wolves circling a lone animal. I could see the faint outline of a driver in the cab of the truck beside me, their face hidden in shadow, but their eyes, those eyes were cold and unyielding. "Get out of my way!" I yelled into the night, but my voice was drowned out by the roar of the engines. My truck jolted as I maneuvered to break free, but it was like I was trying to escape a dream where the more you struggle, the deeper you sink. I swerved left, then right, desperately trying to find a gap, but the trucks closed in tighter, forcing me to stay locked in with them. My heart pounded in my chest, and all I could think about was getting away. Suddenly, I noticed headlights in the distance. An approaching vehicle. Relief washed over me, and I took one last gamble. I flipped on my turn signal, veering toward the open lane in a frantic escape attempt. The moment I crossed into the path of the oncoming car, the convoy seemed to scatter like roaches in the light. I couldn't look back. I just drove, my heart racing and my hands trembling on the wheel, until the highway opened up in front of me and the trucks faded into the dark behind me. Eventually, I pulled into a rest stop, panting and shaken. I stepped out of the truck, leaning against it as I tried to calm my racing heart. I looked back at the road I had just traveled, half expecting to see the trucks re-emerge from the shadows. But all I saw was the quiet highway stretching into darkness. As I caught my breath, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something horrific, something that might have taken more than just my sanity. I climbed back into my rig and made a silent promise to myself. I'd never take that route again. It was just past midnight when I pulled into a rest stop off Interstate 10, somewhere between New Mexico and Texas. I had been driving for hours, the endless stretch of highway blurring into the monotonous hum of my semi-truck's engine. The clock on my dashboard read 12:15 a.m., and my body was begging for a break. So, when I spotted the flickering lights of the rest area, I felt a rush of relief. As I stepped out into the cool night air, the smell of diesel and fast food wafted through the lot. I stretched my legs and took a deep breath, savoring the moment away from the confines of my cab. I walked into the small building that housed the restrooms and a convenience store. The overhead fluorescent lights buzzed, casting a harsh glow over everything. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It felt unnatural, like the world had hit pause. A handful of other travelers were inside, but they all seemed lost in their own thoughts, staring blankly into space. One man leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his eyes vacant and hollow. A woman near the coffee station stirred sugar into her cup but didn't take a sip, just staring ahead as if in a trance. I tried to shake off the unease creeping in. "Must be a late night thing," I muttered to myself. I headed to the restroom, and the stark white tiles echoed with every step. After washing my hands, I glanced at my reflection. dark circles were forming under my eyes, a reminder of the long hours on the road. I splashed some water on my face and took a moment to gather myself before stepping back out into the rest stop. When I returned, the first thing that hit me was the absence of my truck. My heart dropped. I had parked it right outside, the bright red paint gleaming under the lights. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right direction, I thought. I turned, scanning the parking lot, but all I could see were empty spaces and the dim glow of the building behind me. I walked toward where I thought I had parked, panic rising in my chest. "Hey!" I called out to the group of people who were still standing there, lost in their own worlds. "Has anyone seen my truck?" No response, not even a glance in my direction. The silence was suffocating, and the air felt heavy. I took a deep breath and walked outside the building, hoping to get a better view of the lot. But as I stepped out, the scene shifted dramatically. The parking lot was gone, replaced by a dense, dark forest. My heart raced as I turned back toward the building, but it was no longer the same. The walls seemed to twist and bulge, the entrance warped into a narrow, crooked doorway. The lights flickered erratically, casting strange shadows that danced around me. "Hello?" I called out again, more desperate this time. My voice echoed off the trees, but I was met with only silence. The quiet felt alive, pulsating around me. I felt like I was being watched, but I couldn't see anyone. I turned in a circle, trying to get my bearings, but every direction looked the same. Panic surged through me as I realized I was trapped. "This isn't happening," I whispered to myself. I sprinted back toward where the rest stop had been, but the ground beneath me shifted again. It felt like the earth was pulling away from me. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. I raced toward the trees, hoping to find a path, a way out. But the branches loomed overhead like skeletal fingers, clawing at the night sky. I could feel the shadows closing in around me, thick and suffocating. Then I heard a noise, a low, guttural hum that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. It wrapped around me, suffocating my thoughts. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. I turned again, scanning the darkness for any sign of help. In that moment, I saw a figure emerge from the trees. It was the man I had seen inside the rest stop, still with that same vacant expression. He moved closer, and I froze, every instinct screaming to run. "Help!" I yelled, but the sound barely left my lips. He didn't respond. Instead, he continued to approach, his movements unnaturally smooth and fluid. Just as he reached for me, I felt a jolt of adrenaline. I turned and ran deeper into the woods, the sound of my pounding heart drowning out the humming. I couldn't let him touch me. I had to escape whatever this nightmare was. I ran until I couldn't anymore, collapsing against a tree, gasping for breath. But even then, I felt the darkness closing in, the shadows whispering promises of entrapment. I closed my eyes, wishing desperately for the reality of my truck and the open road. But when I opened them again, the trees had shifted, and I knew there was no way out.